What is up, everybody, and welcome to the PlayStation Forecast, episode 66. I, of course, am your host, Alex Derrickson. Hope you all had a good week, as always. You know, I always do hope you have a good week, obviously. I'm not a monster, right? It's been more rain, actually, instead, we got the opposite of rain. We got the opposite of rain this time in the old Ohio, USA. Just got a goddamn heat wave, right? Now, instead of it being rainy all the damn time, it's just like 90 plus degrees every day for forever. All this week, all plus 90 in the temperature, all rain all the time. That's Ohio. I used to do stand up, and I mean loosely. One of my jokes was Ohio has two seasons, winter and July, and then they kind of just gets worse from there. But yeah, so games I've been playing, right? That's what this part of the show is. The games I've been playing. What people pay paper for, ain't it? So I got a little bit more into Star Wars Battlefront 2. I know I kind of lambasted it a little bit last week, talking about how I thought it was a really stupid design choice to open the game with like a kind of a stealthy droid through the ventilation Die Hard kind of mission, right? I still stand by that statement, but actually getting out of there and into Endor, which was the next stage, which is kind of where I'm at, because I can only put in like 35 minutes of that game at a time. It's such a pretty game. I actually played it on the Pro on the TV upstairs, right? And like the environments are so gorgeous. The water is so good. The character designs are good. The environments are so pretty and lush, and like the colors are so bright, and they just pop on that. The gunplay is so good. The audio design is so good. But I just am not getting into it. You know? Like, I put some time in it, and I'm like, all right, cool, yep, cool. Like, shot those guys, good. All right, cool, I'm doing this now, it's good. And I'm kind of like in between like the second stage or second level, right? Mission or whatever. And I know it was written by Walt Williams, who did Spec Ops The Line, which is arguably my favorite game of last generation, and then Seth Macy, formerly of IGN. And like, you can kind of start getting the morally ambiguous, drops. It's a slow drip at the start, right? Because like that's kind of how Spec Ops was. It's this moral ambiguity of war. Like, who really is the bad guy in a war, right? Like, we're all kind of shitty. So you see like the drops of that, and that's really the only thing that's pushing me forward in this, and why I'm kind of just picking it up like here and there intermittently, is because like the pedigree of the writing, I think, should speak for itself. For me, as someone who has championed Spec Ops The Line as much as I have, on and off the show over the last, holy shit, like 6 or 7 years since I played it. Seriously, if you have not played Spec Ops The Line, find a copy at GameStop or download it on the PSN, whatever you got to do. Definitely play that. It is such an extraordinary game. But I want some of that in Battlefront, and I think when you're playing as the villain, you're going to get those opportunities, right? It's just they're not there yet, obviously, because she hasn't had her moment, her turn, where she's like, "Oh, have we been the baddies the whole time?" That whole thing. So I'm waiting for that, and I want to play to that point to kind of see like how it gets. And I've read the story gets a little fan fiction-y at points, erotic or otherwise. And, I kind of want to see, like, where that kind of de-evolves from, like, what feels like a really good standalone piece into, what it may become, in 6 hours or so. I'm going to keep just chipping away at it. I'm not going to, like, sit down one day and just be like, it's motherfucking Battlefront day, and just churn through it in a sitting or whatever. It's not really. It's something that's definitely more picking up when I have 35, 40 minutes, can kind of push forward a little bit, do a thing, turn it off. And stretch it out. I'm not in a rush to finish it. Nothing about it is making me want to sit there and be like, I gotta see how this ends. I gotta know the thrilling conclusion to the Star Wars Battlefront 2 campaign. I'm probably not gonna take it online at any point either. Like, I think like I said, I paid like $15 for this game like a year and a half ago, and I'm just now getting to it. So clearly, like, the drive isn't there for me to really actively pursue anything beyond just the campaign, which is all I wanted in the first place. I miss. Gone are the day, because I think they only did this once. Gone are the day when EA released Fight Night Champion, right? And it had it was mature rated, because of the story. So you had the story mode, you had your exhibition stuff, you had all these other modes, and you could actually like a la carte purchase them off the PlayStation Store. Now, I really do honestly feel like this was one of the best things EA has done in the last 2 console generations, is break that game up kind of a la carte, because people just wanted the story, and people were like, oh, like, but you know, if you were under 17, that story was what was tipping the scales into a mature rating. So if you didn't want the story, you could kind of buy piecemeal, but if you bought all of the piecemeal stuff individually, it was just cheaper to buy the whole game. So they had this like pricing structure built out to where you could, like I said, a la carte the features. And I honestly thought that was genius. I was really shocked no one's ever really gone back to the well for that. And I really thought Battlefront could have been that too, you know, because there was such a to-do about the online stuff, the pay-to-win stuff, the loot boxes and all those things. And people wanted a campaign from the first one. That was the chief complaint of the first one, was a campaign would be good. So then EA was like, well, here's your campaign, but we fucked up the online stuff. And then people were like, well, what if we just want the campaign? And I thought, wow, like, what if you just broke up the campaign to be $20? Some other mode being 20, the other mode being 20, whatever. If you buy it individually or separately, it's the total cost of the game, but you can kind of just pick and choose what pieces you want. Because I would have picked up just the campaign day one, probably. If it was just like $20, 6-hour game, or whatever. Sure. You know, if I like it enough, go in, buy the online mode, go in, you know, whatever. It just seemed to make a lot of sense for me for a game to do that. Or with Madden's story mode, with Longshot, would really love to be able to just buy that and kind of experience that. I don't want the whole shebang of Madden, you know. Just want to do that. Just want to do that little piece. So it's one of those things where, like, when EA did that, I'm like, that's a brilliant move. Like, a la carte gaming, like, that is awesome. But then they've never really gone back to it from a digital or physical landscape. The other game that I played, if you missed the Wednesday stream, you missed a fucking doozy. I played Bloodborne for the first time. And not only did I play Bloodborne for the first time, I played a Souls game for the first time. Rudimentarily speaking, like, I played Demon Souls for like 8 minutes, and I don't count that. So I played Bloodborne for the first time, and Jesus Christ, I talk so often about how I'm not good at games, and did that ever shine? Like, just a glitter on a pimple. That thing just stood out. I mean, if we're dissecting it, like, you know, like kind of giving quick like thoughts here, it's gorgeous. Love the art style. I really like the controls. I thought they could have been explained a little better, because I think, thank God for the chat, because y'all directed me and instructed me, gave me multiple tips and how-tos and how-dos, because I would have drowned, like, right at the start. I mean, I did. I think in 2 hours I died 21 times. Didn't get past the first part, never faced a boss. But I had a blast, and a lot of that is because y'all were there with me. You know, if I were just playing this by myself, I would have had a miserable time. I would have shaved my head, burned my house down, you know. But because, you know, we had this whole chat going, and I started kind of dicking around, and we started like trying to do different things, different tactics, different, you know, approaches and things like that. It made the game super enjoyable. So Bloodborne is going to be something that I come back to probably a lot, but exclusively through the streams. So really hope y'all will join me for those. The other thing I played was Doom, and this was also my first foray into that. That was Saturday night. I'd seen Doom 2016. I mean, Doom itself, Doom and Doom 2, like, from the PC era, some of my earliest gaming memories. I played those when I was like 5 and 6 and 7 and like 8. I played them for a long ass time. So I love Doom for what it is, and for the franchise, and for what it means to me. So diving into Doom 2016 was really funny to me, because I remember the hubbub around Doom. I remember the press junkets surrounding Doom being like, oh my God, this is the most violent game we've ever seen. Like, this is crazy. You're shooting these people and all these crazy monsters, the gore. And then you see, like, okay, that's 1993, 95 gore. What does that look like in 2016, 17, 18, 19? And Jesus Christ, man, did they nail it. Like, good Lord. That is true to its roots. I love the gunplay. I think it's exceptional how fast that game moves, and it takes me by surprise a little bit. I got turned around a lot. A lot of that because I was just incredibly tired. I had been out in the sun all day, and I was trying to play it at like 9 p.m., which was just stupid, considering I'd been up since like 5. But I really think it's gorgeous. I love just the excess and gore. Like, that's such an exercise in excess. I love the way the guns feel. I love how smooth it feels. The jumping is good. The platforming is really good. And you can kind of see, I know, I think it was Tim Geddes and Kind of Funny said Doom Eternal was echoing Celeste for him in terms of like the jump dash. And I totally see that now, given like the fluidity of the movement. But one thing I really liked was how it kind of opens up and it's not like a monster closet, right? Like the doors just don't open and you're not dealing with just a horde or a swarm of things like you would in like an Uncharted or something like that, or really even in OG Dooms. This is set up where the doors open, and if there's, demons there or possessed there, it's almost like a battle arena. Like you're kind of in this, enclosed circular space to kind of move around, clear that area out, and then you can kind of explore, push forward into the next little battle arena. And I really love how like ammo and health is bountiful, but it's all through the glory kills. I think that takes that excess gore, right? And it's, how do you justify that? And the quickest answer is to turn it into a mechanic. So how do you turn that into a mechanic? You make that how you get your ammo, how you get your health. And then if you use the chainsaw, you have your limited, gas, which is not as bountiful and plentiful as everything else, but use the chainsaw. And, bigger the enemies, the more gas you have to use, obviously, but they just blossom into ammo and into health. So you kind of get a much bountiful harvest if you go with a more like direct, gory melee weapon. So their ability to tie gore as a mechanic, I thought, was actually genius. Like that was one of those things where I'm like, holy shit, like I genuinely regret not getting to it earlier. Like that's how I feel. I don't necessarily feel that same way about Bloodborne. Just because I'm like, I knew, like, that was a known quantity for me. Like, that was the devil I know, and I did not need to jump into that. Like, jumping into it how I did, could not have had a better time. With Doom, that's something I'm going to be playing off the streams. That's something I'm going to be spending time with, when I have it. Really, really excited to kind of get more into that. Really am excited to play more Bloodborne down the road. I don't think anything too crazy anytime soon. On the docket this week, I want to get into Crash Team Racing. I do want to put a little bit more into Battlefront, put a little bit more into Doom as time allots. The nice thing is I know, I do this stream Monday nights, and then Wednesday nights are the regular streams, like the weekly like game streams. I don't work on Thursday. So if you got nothing to do Wednesday night, on the eve of America's birthday, hit up twitch.tv/PressXToAlex at around 8 p.m. I'll be here and probably playing Crash, probably playing a handful of other things, but going a little longer than the typical 2-hour stay, right? Like I want to go until like the 11:30, maybe even ring the bells for America's birthday at midnight. Do something. Just make it last. And plus, we're super close to affiliate. So, like, super close. We got to get that concurrent number up, but it's, like, right fucking there. And I think between tonight and Wednesday and, hell, maybe Saturday if we're feeling crazy, depends on if I get a nap, because that's clearly what I'm going to need if I want to do late-night streams on the weekend. I'm going to need a midday nap, because I'm old, and I have a kid, and he wakes up really early. So that's the plan for this week. That's what I played last week. We got a whole chunk of news to get into, so if you're joining me live, thank you so much. Strap in. As I say each week, put on your Thanksgiving pants, because this is the PlayStation Forecast, and it does come to you live Monday nights at 7:30 Eastern at twitch.tv/PressXToAlex. But if you miss it live, never you worry. You can get it at youtube.com/PressXToAlex in the podcast service of your choice each and every Tuesday the day after. It's just waiting Tuesday midnight, you just boom, 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 there it is. That's all you gotta do. Click the buttons and all that. If you want to support the show, you can. This little labor of love is mostly self-funded by myself, but self-produced entirely. So if you want to help support the show, you can at patreon.com/PressXToAlex for as little as $12 a year. That's $1 a month. So if you have $1 a month, you don't have a place for, feel free to go to patreon.com/PressXToAlex. If you have $3, $4, $5, $6, do that too. I'm not going to say no. I'm not going to stop you. But it does help keep the mics and lights working each and every week. Keeps them on. Helps me upgrade stuff too. As you've seen, we've been able to upgrade the laptop here. We've been, we got these lights. We got mics and stuff like that. We want to make these incremental upgrades, as this is an ever-evolving product over the last, year and a half now almost, which is insane. Last 66 weeks. If you want to have your voice heard on the show, you can go to psforums.pressxtoalex.com, where you can write in with your questions, comments, commentaries, and concerns, or just follow me on Twitter and get at me there at twitter.com/pressxtoalex. But if you don't have the buck to toss, don't worry about that either. All you got to do is retweet it. follow me on Twitter. Hell, subscribe on YouTube. Follow on Twitch. All those little numerical quantifiable things all help. Going into iTunes, hitting those 5 stars, writing a nice little review, all those things. All those things help drive the numbers, drive the metrics, help make me and this show more discoverable, more findable, which helps this grow as we try to foster the community that I set out to do this year. I appreciate you all here. Remember, if you are watching the show live on Twitch, I don't get into the chat until after I'm done because, like I said, it's just me here. If I turn this camera around, there's nothing. It's an empty couch and a pillow with some zebra stripe covers. That's all that's here with me doing this right now. So I'll get to the chat at the post show, which will be immediately following this. So just hang tight. Feel free to get in the chat, say what you want, when I will respond and react accordingly afterwards. But without further ado, let's get into the news. Got a couple big uns, a lot of small boys. I missed this one last week. It just slipped right by me. I thought I had the tab open, and I didn't. But Sony has patented another way to reduce load times. This comes from Matt Purslow over at IGN. You may have heard of them. Sony has patented a new technology that will help remove loading screens from games that use it. The patent titled, quote, System and Method for Dynamically Loading Game Software for Smooth Gameplay, end quote. What's the acronym for that? Samfordlgusfursgip. Sam Girdlefuskip described a technology that loads in data in advance in order to prevent load screens. The patent explains that the system can monitor the player's character and use this information to load in new areas in preparation as the player approaches them. Quote, a load boundary associated with the game environment is identified. A position of a game character in the game environment is then monitored. Instructions corresponding to another game environment are loaded into a memory when the character crosses the load boundary, such that gameplay is not interrupted, end quote, the patent describes. Effectively, this means if the game detects that you're approaching the boundary of the environment that is currently loaded, it can load the next environment into a standby memory module and then instantly display it when you eventually reach the boundary. Rather than sending you to a load screen or a quote-unquote transition room, such as Mass Effect's elevators. Always gotta just talk shit about them elevators, right? They were terrible, I know, but come on. Find a new reference. This patent is an unsurprising filing considering one of the PS5 specs is a bespoke solid-state drive, which Sony have focused on their discussion of next-gen gaming so far. The Xbox Scarlett has also been revealed to use an SSD, indicating that a big feature of next-gen will be dramatically reduced load times or, in the case of this patent, no load screens during gameplay. It's important to note that the patent does not indicate a complete eradication of load screens altogether. The description refers to load screens that interrupt gameplay rather than initial load times during boot up. Indeed, it seems unlikely that with current tech, we'll be able to instantly jump into a game with no load times at all, but anything to help smooth out in-game loading is very much appreciated. Threw that in there. I mean, that seems to be a big focus, right? We saw it with the Wall Street Journal stuff. We saw it with the Wired article. We saw it with Xbox's E3 thing, like load times and diminishing load times to being, next to nothing, 0.8 seconds, right? I think was that Spider-Man demo they showed. I think that's going to be a big focus, right? Is how fast can we get into the game? Because we've hit that uncanny valley where games aren't going to get progressively more attractive looking, right? Like we're not going to get much further than what we are now. We can focus on ray tracing, 8K, all that other stuff, but it starts getting down into how do you maximize the experience? How do you get that barrier to entry between the menu and the game, right? How do you get rid of that? How do you move like from one location to another without it doing something that obviously, has like pop in or like the Mass Effect elevators, obviously. Things like that to kind of like expedite the process to not remove you from that immersion. And I think that's great. I think that is something that's very obvious that needs to be tweaked and looked at, especially if you look at one thing I always kind of look at are the WWE 2K games, where if you make let's use custom entrances, right? If you make a custom entrance, say you're using one person's like ramp, like main, like coming from behind the curtain onto the main ramp, and then you load a different ring animation as your second part. What it does is it does these cuts to the crowd to serve as basically a load thing, because you're trying to move not from point A to point B, but from like A to like D4, where it's like, okay, yeah, we're at A1, but not only do we need to jump to D, we need to jump to the fourth iteration of D. So how do we get through BC and then the others? So it's these longer like cuts to the crowd, and the crowd is not an attractive looking animation in that game, in any of those games ever. So it's this weird like piecemeal, like, okay, like, oh yeah, that's what that's doing. That's loading the next thing by putting this up in front of me, and it's distracting and it's really obvious. Same goes for if you actually load like a custom superstar. It takes a few minutes, so these crowd cuts and these wide shots as it kind of generates everything to churn out for you. And the more customized stuff there is for it, the longer that stuff does take. I did it with like 2K15, 16, and 18, and they were all the same. Or 15, 16, whatever. The ones I've played this generation, 14, 15, 17, I don't fucking remember. But that's something that's run rampant through that entire series, is if you start getting too customized, it takes it longer to generate, and it gets these more like intermittent crowd cuts to kind of cut back on, to distract you from what it's doing, and that's loading. So the less of that, the better. And if you can do that and this patent works, because that's the important thing about the patents too, right? Is the patents aren't so much the what or the whys, but the hows. It's not like everyone, I could wake up and be like, I'm going to patent load times by, whatever, make something up. But you're patenting the how. You're not patenting the what. So, seeing them having that, whether that's rolled out instantly with this or it's something that's going to be later on down the road, we'll see. But this is an idea they have, so they patented it. And, yeah, so exciting. It seems like that's going to be a big focus, is cutting back on the load times. Heading over to the PlayStation blog for the next piece of news are your PS Plus games for July. This comes from Matthew Groizard at the PlayStation blog. Take to the pitch in an acclaimed football simulator and put the pedal to the metal in a nostalgic arcade racer with your next batch of PlayStation Plus monthly games for July. Let's take a closer look. Pro Evolution Soccer 2019. From Konami's long-running sports franchise, Pro Evolution Soccer 2019 features a huge selection of real-world licensed leagues alongside hundreds of familiar players, bringing the thrill of global competition directly to your living room. Create magic moments on and off the pitch, with each player possessing their own traits that will affect how they react in the moment, while My Club and Master League modes allow you to pursue your own club career. Enjoy local play for up to 4 players, or go online and test your skills against the world. Your second game is Horizon Chase Turbo. Prepare for a blast of pure 90s nostalgia with Horizon Chase Turbo, a love letter to the iconic Just One More Go racers of the arcade's golden age. Drawing inspiration from the likes of Outrun, Top Gear, and Rush, developer Aquarius Game Studios captures the essence of the 16-bit era with style. With modern visuals, a soundtrack with insane arpeggios, and classic split-screen couch multiplayer. Play solo or grab up to 3 friends. You'll pilot your car through extraordinary places, watching the sun set, facing rain, snow, volcanic ashes, and even severe sandstorms. Both Pro Evolution Soccer 2019 and Horizon Chase Turbo are available to download from the PlayStation Store on July 2nd until August 5th. So yep, those are them. I know a lot of people are disappointed because they cut back on the Vita games, on the PS3 games. We were kind of hoping maybe they get supplemented with PSVR stuff. Clearly that's not happening. It's just the 2 PS4 games. And people are upset because they're not huge AAA titles. However, as I've said for the last 66 weeks, free games are free games. Just put them in your library. No one's gun to your head making you play them. Quit bitching. I know it sucks, but you're also getting the online service, you're getting discounts, you're getting all these other things through PlayStation Plus. Free games are free games. Not every month is going to be a batch of winners. It's not my favorite either, but whatever. That's what we're getting. They're free. No one's making you play them. Next news, I just put this on here because I thought it was interesting, comes from Matt Piscatella from the NPD group. Remember, if you are not following Matt Piscatella on Twitter at twitter.com/Matt with 1 T, Piscatella with 2 L's, you're messing up. You're missing out on some good shit. If you're a numbers-obsessed person like I am, you got that weird stats brain, you eat this shit up. Matt went on Twitter this morning and put up a little bit of fun stuff. He broke down for PS4, Xbox One, and Switch. We're only going to focus on PS4 because that's what the show is, right? Not the Nintendo Switch forecast, are the life to date as of the end of May 2019 U.S. top 10 games, physical and full game digital for publishers in the digital leader panel, ranked on dollar sales for PS4. So lifetime to date. So from November 2013, to May of 2019, your top 10 best-selling games for the PS4 are as follows. Number 1, Grand Theft Auto 5. Number 2, Red Dead Redemption 2. Number 3, Call of Duty World War II. Number 4, Call of Duty Black Ops 4. Number 5, Call of Duty Black Ops 3. Number 6, Marvel's Spider-Man. Number 7, Call of Duty Infinite Warfare. Number 8, God of War. Number 9, NBA 2K18. And number 10, Battlefield 1. So top 10 lifetime to date, right? You've got 1, 2, 3 Take-Two games, 4 Activision games, an EA game, and 2 Sony exclusives. If you want to break down just those real quick, Xbox is all third party. You've got 2 Take-Two games, 5 Activision games, 2 EA games, and a Bungie game. And then over on the Switch, you've got 9 Nintendo games and a Ubisoft game that uses a Nintendo license. So you can kind of see where the balance lies. Like, people are buying the Switch for the first-party games. People are buying the Xbox One for Grand Theft Auto and multiplayer games. PS4 is a lot of multiplayer stuff too, and then your 2 exclusives with now Marvel Spider-Man being lifetime to date the best-selling PS4 system exclusive with God of War at its tails, 2 games behind it. NBA 2K18 being on there I think is interesting. I know it's been on sale off and on a lot during its time being out. Battlefield 1 sneaking in there I thought was interesting. Take-Two occupying the top 2 spots with Activision taking 3, 4, 5, and 7. No surprise. It's hard to fight Activision, right? Like I remember Matt had posted up a thing that was like your top 10 best-selling games of the generation or whatever, and it was all Activision games and then 2 Take-Two games. Like, it was GTA, it was Red Dead, and then it was just Call of Duty. And I had made the comment, like, as a joke, just because who talks like this? I said something along the lines of, back in my day, there were but 2 gods. One that ruled for generations, and the other, when called upon, brought reckoning. And the one ruling for generations being Activision, the one that, brings reckoning being Take-Two, because Take-Two and those games, the GTA games and Red Dead, are the only thing that can beat Call of Duty in these numbers in a 100 million player base, 100 million install base for systems. It's just Take-Two's bread and butter of those open world games that knocks out Call of Duty every time. That's it. Other than that, Call of Duty, your best selling game year after year after year after year after goddamn year. It's absurd. And, I know people talk about them being sick of it and, people saying, oh, it's just the Madden shooter. But guess what? That Madden shooter makes a fuck ton of money. What can you do? If you're tired of seeing Call of Duty in the top 10, quit buying Call of Duty. That's it. All y'all get behind your keyboards and you're like, oh, I'm never going to play a Call of Duty game again. And guess what? Number 1 every time, unless Rockstar puts a game out. That's it. What can I tell you? People don't care. This one, so this one came through late last week. I threw it in here because it is salient. It is relevant to talk about if we're talking about the big 3 teaming up. I'm not going to get too in the weeds with this one because we're going to get to the point where I cannot provide a lot of context to this upcoming story because I will be straddling a fine line between knowledge and talking out of my ass. So I'm not going to get too deep into it, but Sony, Microsoft, and Nintendo come out against President Trump's tariffs on gaming consoles. This is from Ethan Gatch over at Kotaku. Sony, Microsoft, and Nintendo have joined forces to tell the U.S. government that its newly proposed tariffs on goods imported from China would hurt consumers, put jobs at risk, and stifle innovation, according to a joint letter sent by the companies to the Office of the U.S. Trade Representative. As part of its ongoing trade war with China, the Trump administration has proposed a $300 billion in tariffs or taxes on foreign goods on most consumer goods. This would include a 25% tariff on video game consoles. Quote, for those purchases that do go forward despite tariffs, consumers would pay $840 million more than they otherwise would have, end quote, the console manufacturers argue, citing a report by the trade partnership Worldwide Economic Group. In the joint letter dated June 17th, the companies say that 96% of video game consoles imported by the U.S. are manufactured in China and that due to the custom hardware inside of them, they can't be easily made elsewhere. Quote, the video game console supply chain has developed in China over many years of investment by our companies and our partners, the companies say. It would cause significant supply chain disruption to shift sourcing entirely to the United States or a third country, and it would increase cost, even beyond the cost of the proposed tariffs, on products that are already manufactured under tight margin conditions, end quote. They go on, quote, each video game console comprises dozens of complex components sourced from multiple countries. A change in even a single supplier must be vetted carefully to mitigate risks of product quality, unreliability, and consumer safety issues. Tariffs would significantly disrupt our company's businesses and add significant costs that would depress sales of video game consoles and the games and services that drive the profitability of this market segment, end quote. The companies don't speculate what the 25% tariff would do to the price that consumers will pay at the cash register, but they do argue that the effects of the increased cost would be felt throughout the industry, including by companies both big and small who make games. Quote, because of the deep interdependence of video game consoles and game software, and due to the price sensitivity of video game console purchasers, tariffs on video game consoles would not only harm our companies, consumers, and retailers, but will also disproportionately harm the thousands of small and medium-sized software and accessory developers in the United States, the companies say, continuing, thus these tariffs would have a ripple effect of harm that extends throughout the video game ecosystem, end quote. It's still not completely clear if and when the new round of tariffs will go into effect. Trade talks between the U.S. and China are currently ongoing, and yesterday at the time of this being published, obviously, Bloomberg reported that the new tariffs could be suspended from going into effect if progress is made at the Group of 20 summit taking place in Osaka, Japan this weekend. Haven't really seen a follow-up on this. I thought it was important to put in here, one, because it's seldom you see Sony, Nintendo, and Microsoft kind of banding together for a certain cause, right? We saw it with Reggie and Sean Layden and Phil Spencer at the Game Awards last year, but never in this sort of like political juncture, right? Where they're coming out and being like, look, you don't know what this is going to do to this industry. And I think that's a fair play. That's a fair statement. Like, I have my thoughts on this current regime and this current administration. This is not a political podcast. And I'm not getting into it at the risk of damaging my brand. I don't give a fuck. Like, I have very staunch hardline opinions, and if you want them, you can ask me about them. But I'm not going to sit there and spill them upon you. I think that, yes, I don't know three better companies to speak on this with, to speak on the negative effect and the impact it will have, not only on them, but the manufacturing, the distribution, the shipping, the retail, the consumer aspect. Like, they know that shit. Video game systems themselves are sold at, like, next to nothing in the margins. Like, they're sold almost at cost, if not at a loss, especially for the PS3's sake. The money is not made on the systems. So if you're ramping up importation taxes and tariffs and things like that, you are going to cause those prices to go up because you are selling something that slips between these margins, like they aren't sold for profit. And that's, you can look that up anywhere if you want to debate me or make me cite that source. I worked in games retail for 10 years. I know. So these systems are sold for next to, like I said, for like next to nothing, for almost $0 in profit. The money is made in the games. The money is made in the accessories. But if you're looking at the systems themselves, if the system is $400, it may cost $375 to make and ship and sell. It may be like $380, $390. Like, it's cutting it close. I think with the PS3, it was $600 retail, but it cost almost $800 to make, ship, and sell. Because the idea would be 2 or 3 years later, all of that tech was going to come down in price, and they'd be able to sell it for, $300-$400, and it was only going to cost them $300-$400 to make. So they'd start breaking even as the prices, went down, the cost of the pieces went down, and all that. I'm getting in over my head. But if Sony, Nintendo, and Microsoft are coming out and being like, hey, don't do this, I don't know a better source for that to come from than for them to be like, hey, we are this industry, and you're going to kill us. So I don't want an $800 system or a $600 system or a $700 system. Like, I'm cool. I barely want it to get into $5. Like, I think this will be a generation where we are looking at a $500 price point kind of being the bar. So if we're getting into, these tariffs and these extra expenses and things like that because of importing or having to pick up and move, a factory or manufacturer somewhere to another country or anything like that, you're getting into a situation that is, yes, harmful to the consumer. And that's why I put this in here, is I think it's something we need to have a watchful eye on, because I don't think there is an eye on us looking out for us as the consumer. That's where I'm going with it. Moving on to the next news story from Eurogamer. EA Access hits PS4 in July. We kind of knew it. We knew July was the thing, but now I think we actually have the official, or we knew it was coming. I don't know if we knew July was the thing. But this is from Wesley Yin Poole. EA Access launches on PlayStation 4 on July 24th, EA has confirmed. The subscription service, already available on Xbox One and PC, lets you try EA games before official launch day, lets you try EA games before official launch day, gives you discounts, and crucially, gives you access to a library of EA games. The likes of Battlefield 5, FIFA 19, Titanfall 2, and Mass Effect Andromeda are all expected to be part of the vault on PS4. On Xbox One, EA Access costs €3.99. American money, please. But he's saying it'll probably cost the same on PS4. So I believe it was July 24th it'll launch. I said, it's a cool little update there, but I said if it gets the Mass Effect trilogy off of being stranded on the PS3 or their last gen consoles, I'm there day one. If I can use EA Access to find a way to play the Mass Effect trilogy on my PS4 at its standard resolution even. I'm not looking for up-res graphics. I'm not looking for anything nuts. Nothing crazy. Just saying, if I have the opportunity to do that, I will pay the money to do that. But EA Access, coming to the PS4 July 24th. Get excited. Let's see. Next news story comes from Joseph Noop at IGN. Ni no Kuni sequel confirmed by developer Level 5. In an interview with Japanese magazine Nikki, translated and reported on by DualShockers, Level 5 president Akihiro Hino confirmed that a new Ni no Kuni game is in the works and will release sometime after the Ni no Kuni movie, which premieres on August 29th in Japan. Hino didn't give many details beyond that, unfortunately, but did comment on how Level 5 is currently reviewing its development process, according to DualShockers. Level 5's recent projects Yokai Watch 4 and Inazuma 11 Aris no Tenben, every time, there's one of those every episode, were both delayed. In the interview, Hino implied that Level 5 is aiming to regain the trust of its fanbase after these delays. With that information in mind, it's reasonable to assume that this new Ni no Kuni game won't see release for some time, although Level 5 seems dedicated to expanding the franchise through its film adaptation. I threw that in there because, I know Ni no Kuni's popular. It's a popular PlayStation exclusive franchise, especially in the JRPG market. I loved the first one's art aspect. I loved Studio Ghibli. I love that look, that style. I did not get too far into it. I know friend of the show Alex Wolf, host of Wolfie's Gaming Den, which you should like and subscribe and follow on Spotify and Apple Podcasts and Anchor. I referred to him as the mayor of Ding Dong Dell. He is platinum Ni no Kuni 2. I'm sure once the remaster for Ni no Kuni 1 is out, he will platinum that one too. And I'm sure he's hyped as hell for Ni no Kuni 3. So go and follow Alex. I believe it's real Alex Wolf on Twitter. Let me pull him up. It's twitter.com/AlexDWolf, WOLFE. Give Alex a follow, support his podcast, and tell him I said hey and I love him. And I'm also going to tell him hey and I love him because I love that kid. He's been on the show a few times. So be sure to give him a follow, check out his show, and tell him to be excited about Ni no Kuni 3. Next bit of news is a two-parter. We've got two different articles here kind of touching on the same thing. Same but different. This comes from James Batchelor over at gamesindustry.biz, where Sony says PlayStation 5 is a niche product for hardcore gamers. Light has been shed on Sony's strategy for its next-generation console, with a firm focus on attracting the hardcore player. This in itself is not too unusual. Members of this demographic are usually early adopters for new consoles, but the Wall Street Journal has shared some insight from its two anonymous Sony officials into how much Sony is prioritizing this audience. In a recent company strategy briefing, Sony chief executive Kenichiro Yoshida described the PlayStation 5, or whatever it is eventually called, as a niche product aimed at hardcore players. The emphasis for this machine is on 8K resolution, ultra-high-definition graphics, as the platform holder believes visual quality to be a key factor in players' purchasing decisions. The company is said to be concentrating on strengthening relationships with large publishers as well as working on AAA exclusives from its internal studios. It is not targeting indie or smaller developers as resources are limited. Case in point, Sony is not planning to showcase independent developers at this year's Tokyo Game Show, which it has done in previous years. One of the officials explained that Sony believes people will buy the next console for the high-quality exclusives rather than smaller games already available on mobile. Executives at smaller game firms say they feel snubbed by this strategy. However, one Sony official believes they will still release games for PlayStation 5 even without the platform holder's support because the popularity will mean it will be a key market they cannot ignore. The sources claim Sony is still concentrating on Microsoft as its main competitor, while Google and its Stadia streaming service are mainly considered a potential threat in the mid to long term, depending on how internet tech and infrastructures improve. None of this sounds too dissimilar to Sony's marketing strategy at the beginning of the current generation, using the tagline "for the players" to emphasize how the lineup would appeal to traditional gamers. In that instance, the platform holder was trying to reclaim ground taken by a dominant Microsoft. This time, Sony has the clear lead with nearly 100 million PS4 units sold worldwide. Back in May, Jim Ryan said initial momentum will be vital to maintaining that position with Sony determined to upgrade PlayStation owners to the next generation faster than ever before. Backwards compatibility will be a key to this, the PlayStation boss said. Then I kind of want to touch on this other thing here. This is from Matt Purslow again over at IGN. Sony is considering studio acquisitions ahead of PS5. Sony is considering acquiring more development studios as it gears up for the launch of PS5. Talking to Nikkei, translation via Gematsu, Sony Interactive Entertainment president and CEO Jim Ryan said that, quote, content is more important than ever before, end quote. In order to secure more content, the company is considering the merger or acquisition of game developers. The thought comes to Sony as it observes new companies enter the industry, such as Google with its Stadia streaming platform. But while Sony no doubt needs to work ever harder, to ensure that it is competitive, the gaming giant welcomes new players in the space. Quote, companies new to the games industry looking at the market with hope is something we definitely welcome, said Ryan. Sony Interactive Entertainment has 25 years of experience in the games industry and has big assets, end quote. Big assets. In bold, it should be. Should this become more than a consideration, it will see Sony acquire more developers for its first-party portfolio, meaning more studios working on PlayStation exclusive games, period. Exclusives, have long been key to ensuring console success stories, and Sony has arguably seen this more than ever during this generation's lifespan with PS4 games such as God of War and Uncharted 4. It seems likely that Sony would want to secure more exclusives for the upcoming PS5. So I want to tackle the no lack of focus on the indie stuff. That doesn't surprise me. I'm not. It's in a way I'm kind of like, oh, bummer, but I think it's easy to twist those words around in a light more negative than it is. I think this time around, yeah, like I was saying before, you've got to focus on the graphic fidelity, load times, the more technical stuff, right? The exclusives are there, but you've got to follow up on that 100 million install base, and you've got to pull those other people over. What Sony has that Xbox doesn't heading into this gen are sequels to phenomenal exclusive games, right? Like, you're sitting on the likelihood in this next console generation of a second Spider-Man, a second Horizon, probably Death Stranding, Last of Us, Ghost of Tsushima all being upgraded in some way, right? You've got all of the PS4 back catalog coming over. You've got all of these other things. So if that install base is there and that customer loyalty is there and you're focusing in on it being like, look, we're going to have the best looking, most powerful system and all those games you were playing before are coming with you, you're picking up that 100 million and you're bringing them. And while they may not be marketing heavy on the indie games, as it says in this article on gamesindustry.biz, like, hey, the indies are going to follow. Like, you don't need to go up there and be like, here's the new game from Supergiant. Here's Housemarque's new game. Here's Drinkbox's new game. Here's a new, whatever. Like, here's a new game from Devolver's publishing or anything like that. You don't need to do that because you have 100 million players, or 100 million systems sold at least. We can't assume that everybody just has one, right? And so you're taking that and you're translating that into those games will come to us. Like, we're going to focus on making the games you can only play on our system and our console and within our, ivory tower with our walled garden. And everyone else is just going to want to come into our tower. They're going to want to come into our walled garden. The indie games will come. Sony wants to play like a Pied Piper kind of thing, right? Where it's like, okay, hey, we're going to have, like I said, Horizon 2. We've got fucking Spider-Man, Last of Us, all these other things. So, yeah, we're going to be bringing those people that want that with us. Your indie games are going to come with them. Your Ape Outs, Katana Zeros, and, stuff like that. Hotline Miamis. And so that stuff, I don't think, you don't need to focus on that when you're marketing this new console because you've got to hit that launch lineup. You've got to nail that. And yeah, the PS4 was like, here's Contrast and Resogun. And Resogun's a great game made by a very great team. But also, like, you had Killzone, NBA, Call of Duty Ghosts. You had those, like, typical heavy hitters. And then you had, like, Shadowfall. You had Knack. So I think moving away from the indie space and trying to drop, like, a handful of AAA titles in there, too. Say, like, I don't think, you don't want to rush any of these studios, but to be like, hey, like, here's Horizon 2 at launch, as well as NBA, as well as the Call of Duty, as well as, a couple other maybe exclusives. Like, you can still put a couple indie games in there, but you don't need to focus on them. You don't need to make that part of, like, one of the pillars of your launch, right? Like, you've got to come out and you've got to be like, hey, it's us or it's them being Microsoft in this case. It's Sony. You're going to buy a PlayStation or you're going to buy an Xbox. Here are the games you can only play here starting at launch. Xbox had Rise when it launched. It had, Forza and things like that. And it's going to have Halo Infinite and, whatever else comes with it holiday 2020. So Sony's got to stack that deck if they want to pull those people over. They can sit there and brag about the tech and brag about the fidelity, but they've got to sit there and also be like, yo, here's what you can play that you can't play on this one. And right now they're crushing it in the exclusives. Like, I know people are always like, oh, people only buy Switches for the Nintendo exclusives. It's like, yeah, because they're fucking good. They're great games. They're of the generation games. And Sony has that too with Spider-Man, with God of War, even with stuff like Detroit, which while it's on PC, yeah, but it took the PS4 a minute to get started. Those gates kind of opened after like Bloodborne and a few other exclusives. And it wasn't until a little bit deeper in where you're like, oh, cool. Like, not only were they hitting it with exclusives, they were hitting it with new IP. And so you're building that legacy. You're building that kind of brand to, you've got the land and they've started building new houses on it. You've got the old houses that you're kind of fixing up, renovating, but they're also building these new houses with Spider-Man, with Death Stranding, with Horizon. And we don't know how Death Stranding is. You've got more rickety things like Days Gone, but it's got good bones. Whereas Microsoft's more or less like plotting the land again. So that's kind of the advantage they have, and you've got to take advantage of that. So they're shifting away from the indie space. Doesn't shock me as a primarily indie gamer myself. I will say I think the definition of indie has changed a lot. Like, we're not looking at Journey. We're not looking at, they're not just pejoratives. They're not just like, oh, it's good for a mobile game or it's good for an indie game. Like, oh yeah, like indie games are getting Game of the Year noms. Like technically Hellblade was an indie game. You look at stuff like Ape Out, like Katana Zero, like Celeste. Technically Destiny 2 is now an indie game because Bungie, I'm not lumping them in there. But you look at stuff like I said, like Celeste, Ape Out, all these other games that are, indie, small team, small developer, small publisher, that are racking up, best of awards, fucking Donut County, Florence, like all of this stuff are all like some of the best games of the last, rolling 12, 16 months, and they're coming from small teams. So I think the definition of what is an indie game has changed, and it's shifted, because I think you can have AAA indie, you can have AA indie, you can have single A indie, you can have AA mobile, AAA mobile. Like, the space has changed, the definition has changed, the word has changed. So if they're sitting there saying, we're not focusing on indie games, I don't think we're going to be seeing fucking Octodad 2 for the PS5 promotional stuff, but that doesn't mean that, like, that's not going to be there. It doesn't mean that they're just like, poo-poo, get out of here, commoner. They're not trying to go full bourgeoisie with this. Now, in terms of studios they could acquire, right? Like, that's the next question. Is they're sitting there and they're like, we're talking about acquiring some stuff. We're analyzing the market, because you've got Microsoft, right? Like picking up Double Fine, Obsidian, Compulsion, fucking Ninja Theory, They're gobbling up these games, but they're gobbling from the middle, right? Like they're gobbling from that middle space to elevate them, to give them that funding, to be like, okay, cool, you're B+, right? You're like, you're Daniel Bryan, WrestleMania 30. We're going to main event your ass. And I think that's a really smart move. I don't know what Sony does here. So I have compiled lists, as I like to do, of studios I could see them acquiring. Some you may find surprising, some you may not. However you look at it is how you look at it. That's fine. This is all, like I said, I have grain of salt, shot in the dark. I don't know. This is just what I'd like to see. So I put down, obviously, my number one, the one I've been beating the drum on since episode 2 of this show. So for the last 64 weeks, I would love to see Sony acquire Supermassive. Like, I thought Until Dawn crushed it for, like, it's not technically a debut, but for a debut game like that, great. It was phenomenal. Like, that game, I remember that game was hard to find for a minute, like when it launched. I was surprised they didn't swoop him up right then. Now you've got Dark Pictures' Man of Medan, and granted, yes, Supermassive did make PSVR exclusives with The Inpatient and with Bravo Team and Rush of Blood, but like they're kind of getting back into the narrative thriller horror adventure game with Dark Pictures' Man of Medan coming out at the end of August. Which I'm super excited about, but it is multi-platform. It's being published by Bandai Namco, and it's like when that was announced, I kind of just was like, you could have had them. Like, maybe they're not for sale, and that's fine. But also, I don't know if any of these are for sale. And the argument I would make for that is, I don't think anybody knew Psyonix was for sale, and Epic bought them. So I think it's just a matter of how big of the truck that you're pulling up full of cash to their door is, right? So Supermassive is one I'd love to see. The next one I put down was Remedy. They've got Control coming out. We're going to touch on some Remedy news here in about 3 more news stories. But Remedy seems to be kind of pulling a bit of an IO Interactive deal, right? Where they're breaking off from their deal with Microsoft, and now they're trying to be like, hey, can we get our games back? We're going to touch on it. They've gotten the rights back to Alan Wake, but we'll get there in a second. And we kind of saw that with IO when they, moved on from Square. Square was like, we're not going to do anything with Hitman. Hitman's yours. Like, take Hitman with you. Like, it's cool. Don't worry about it. No hard feelings. So, like, You could see something like that happening. Sony swooping up IO or something like that. IO wasn't on the list. The other one was Insomniac, but Insomniac has that penchant for staying independent, right? Like they have, that bittersweet thing with Sunset Overdrive where it just didn't quite perform well being exclusive in the Xbox space, but you saw, Ratchet and Clank, you saw Spider-Man. They've done Sony exclusives before. Those exclusives do well, but maybe there is that part of Insomniac that's like, we kind of like doing our own thing still. We like having that leash, let go to be like, hey, like go do you, go be you. We saw something like Quantic Dream, get that big investment. And they're like, great, we're independent now, and we're going to put our shit on PC. Fuck you, Sony. And it's that. Like, so, like, you're seeing studios, too, that, are making exclusives, but technically they're like, we don't really work for you. Like, we're doing this game for you, but we're not Naughty Dog. We're not Sucker Punch. We're not, Santa Monica, San Diego, Bend, anything like that. The other one I put down was From Software. I don't know. I don't see what... That seems like a no-brainer, right? Like that's something I think they've kind of screwed up not doing before, with like Bloodborne, the Souls trilogy. Like if you have a studio that basically invented a genre of games, swoop them up. But they have irons in the fire too with Elden Ring coming to multi-platforms sometime whenever. So there's kind of like that. And, we're seeing that too with Double Fine and with Obsidian, with Psychonauts 2 and Outer Wilds, I get them confused respectively, being like, hey, like we're fulfilling our commitment to publish for everything, but after these, we are exclusive. So, you could see From doing something like that. We're like, hey, Elden Ring's still coming to everything, but from here on out, we are a Sony exclusive studio. But, you could pair them with Japan Studio like they did with Bloodborne and things like that. Like there is an idea there that you could work. I did put a couple indie studios in there. I put a Housemarque or Drinkbox. I would also throw Supergiant in there too. But it also comes down to the fact that much like a lot of these, they're already making games that are exclusive for PlayStation or have in the past. And so like, why buy them if you can just get the games, And then I put Atlas and RGG down, but they're, both divisions of Sega. And I think Sega is too big for Sony to want to gobble up. I could see Nintendo making a push for that too, because they seem like a much better, like, again, the devil, like Sega and Nintendo kind of being, that those 90s fighters there, maybe partnering up. I could see that more than I could see Sony or Microsoft swooping in and picking them up. You could argue, I know on Kind of Funny Games Daily they talked about something like Capcom, which I think, again, too big. Capcom is having their best evers right now. I don't think they're going to be for sale. I think that'd be too much. But then it was brought up, like, what about Crystal Dynamics from Square? And I could see that. Like, Crystal has a Northwest studio. You've got Bend up there. You've kind of got like pockets of other stuff up there too, with studios staying close by in like California and everything. So like that would make sense. And Square being so JRPG focused, you could see that being like, hey, like take our Western studio, like, whatever, we don't need it. So I could see something like that happening, but it'll be interesting to see because, like I said, Microsoft is gobbling from the middle. And I think if Sony wants to do damage and add to a stable of Naughty Dog, and the like, you've got to scoop from the top. And what defines the top gets into now, like, okay, what is way too goddamn expensive? So something to keep an eye on. It's exciting. I like this stuff. I want to see that grow, especially as the competitorship grows within Google, within Apple wanting to throw their hat in the ring and things like that too. Like, these studios are going to be available in a way that I don't think, A, we've seen before, and B, in a way in which I don't think we know. Because like I said, did any of us know Psyonix was arguably on the market? And Epic was just like, hey, we'll cut you a check. I'm like, all right, sure. We weren't for sale, but sure. I think there could be a lot more of that down the road. Next news story, we'll just jump straight to the Remedy thing and then come back. Remedy obtains publishing rights to Alan Wake. This is from Christopher Dring at gamesindustry.biz. The publishing rights for survival horror game Alan Wake has reverted back to the developer Remedy. The IP was previously owned by Microsoft. The company coincides with the news coincides with Remedy receiving a one-time royalty income for its previously released games of 2.5 million. I'm assuming that's euro. This money will not impact the firm's financial results and will be invested in developing new games. Alan Wake is a cult favorite Xbox 360 and later PC exclusive, which sold over 3 million copies. It wasn't quite enough to justify a full sequel, but did result in 2 DLC add-ons and standalone digital-only spin-off game called American Nightmare. In total, the franchise has sold over 4.5 million games. The game has retained a cult following over the years, and the developers frequently asked about a sequel. In fact, the firm announced last year it was working on an Alan Wake TV show. It was working on Alan Wake 2, but the title never came to fruition. The firm's next game is Control, which is due for release in August. They did say, I think on Twitter and like a press release, what this does mean is, yes, we can bring Alan Wake to more consoles. So there is that. If you never did get a chance to play Alan Wake because you didn't have an Xbox 360, or by the time you did, it was harder to find, whatever, maybe you'll be able to. Maybe that'll mean a remaster down the road. But good for Remedy. Like I said, kind of pulling a little bit of an IO, like parting ways from your moving out of your parents and being like, can I take my bed with me? You know? I got some news on the NBA 2K front. This first one comes from Logan Moore. What's up, Logan? At Dual Shockers. NBA 2K19 fans frustrated by ads during loading screens that seemingly cannot be skipped. NBA 2K19 already has quite a few problems when it comes to microtransactions and other shady practices that are centered around getting nothing more than your hard-earned dollar. Don't believe me? Go check out the review from last year. Somehow, though, it seemed like 2K's practices in NBA 2K19 could be getting even worse. As noted in a recent Reddit thread, it looks as though 2K is now prominently featuring ads in 2K19 that play while the game loads. What's worse is that the adverts seemingly cannot be skipped either until it is finished playing. Apparently, this isn't a new addition to NBA 2K, as some fans were quick to note. These in-game commercials have supposedly been around for quite some time and stem from the game's 2K TV feature. You can turn off 2K TV entirely in the options menu of the game, which will seemingly also dispose of any ads that might also show up. Whether or not these commercials will make a return in NBA 2K20 remains to be seen, but it continues to it continues to be a problem, right? Like we talked, I think it was 2K18. I skipped 2K19 entirely because of the whole microtransaction business, and I've been playing 2K since I did 2K, 2K1, 2, 3. I moved to Live for 4, 5, and 6, and got back in with 2K7, and have been, a massive champion for the 2K franchise since, for the last, at that point, 11 years. The microtransaction stuff got real muddy and real murky and real kind of real shitty, real just scummy is the best way I can describe it. It was just scummy, and it didn't seem like it was fixed with 2K19 whatsoever. And now kind of putting in these unskippable ads is like, is this the future of games? I think it might be for Take-Two. But yeah, so if you're dealing with that, you can turn it off if you turn off the NBA 2K TV stuff. But I mean, hell, 2K19 was $3 like last week, and I still didn't get it. Like, I'm just staunch. Like, nope, fix your shit. Sticking with the 2K front, Janet Garcia over at IGN has some news on the NBA 2K20 cover athlete. Again, what up, Janet? Anthony Davis is NBA 2K20's cover athlete for both the standard and deluxe editions, and Dwayne Wade will be gracing the cover of the Legend edition. This isn't the first time Anthony Davis has been featured on the cover of NBA 2K. Back in 2016, he shared it with Steph Curry and James Harden. Davis has been an impressive athlete for years, but trade drama pushed him even further into the spotlight this past season. Previously a center power forward for the New Orleans Pelicans, Davis demanded a trade to the LA Lakers. The trade was finalized on July 6th, but the trade will be finalized on July 6th, but it wasn't an easy road. The first trade deadline was missed, resulting in a particularly drama-filled season that single-handedly, this is not part of the article, it's just me, the NBA fan, single-handedly ruined any momentum the Lakers had, and it was hilarious. As a compromise, interim general manager Danny Ferry limited Davis's playtime to 20 to 25 minutes, and on his last game, Davis strolled in wearing a T-shirt that said, "That's all, folks." Davis will be an LA Laker during the upcoming season, but he can be seen on the cover of NBA 2K20 wearing a neutral athletic shirt. The Legend Edition, on the other hand, features Dwayne Wade rocking a Miami City jersey, which are the sexiest goddamn jerseys ever made in the history of the NBA, against a celebratory palm tree-filled background. It seems fitting given the fact that he spent the vast majority of his career playing for the Miami Heat and retired, so it's fitting that he's on the Legend Edition. So yeah, just your 2K news there. Got that done. Let's see. Had an article from Brianna Reeves at the PlayStationLifestyle.net. Sony Bend is hiring. The article is not loading. I think that's more on my end than it is their end. I've been trying to get this thing to refresh for a minute now, and no dice there. Let's see. How are we doing on time? Okay. Last bit of news before we get into your new games and dates and all that stuff, the wrap-up and all that noise. Last bit of news comes again from the PlayStation blog from Dwayne Benefeld, who's the VP General Manager of PlayStation Vue, where PlayStation Vue subscription service changes. At PlayStation Vue, we always strive to provide the best live TV viewing experience at the most compelling value to our customers. This includes both the content that is popular with our overall customer base as well as the key features that make PS Vue the best place to watch. With cost rising each year for content, we constantly evaluate each deal to ensure we continue to deliver the content you want while considering the overall value of each package. After reviewing this, we have made the decision to raise the price of all of our multi-channel plans by $5. This change starts today for new customers. Our existing customers will keep their current price for at least 30 days and will see the new price beginning on their first billing cycle on or after July 31st. We will continue to focus on making PS Vue the premier destination for live TV streaming with top networks including HBO, FX, HGTV, ESPN, and the NFL Network, in addition to over 650 local broadcast stations. The recent addition of beIN Sports and soon-to-be launched NHL Network and ACC Network will ensure PS Vue has the most robust assortment of national sports channels, while PS Vue already offers unique features such as multi-view on PS4 and Apple TV, the most simultaneously streams at home, and conflict-free DVR, all at no additional cost. We will continue developing new integrations and functionality to enhance your new TV viewing experience. So heads up if you're a PS Vue subscriber, your prices are going up $5, and heads up to new PS Vue subscribers, the prices just went up $5. Got some new dates. Let's go through them real quick. Mighty Switch Force Collection comes to PS4 July 25th. Let's see here. Moss has the new update for PSVR that's available now. Lost Orbit Terminal Velocity comes to PS4 July 16th. Catan we got last week on PSVR. That looks like all the blog has to talk about. Fantasy Strike comes out July 25th. Did I say that one already? I don't remember. And Scraper First Strike launches on PSVR July 2nd. That might be part of the drop. I don't know. We'll see. Catan wasn't. It was one of those, it's coming tomorrow, but it's not part of the new release thing. That's all the stuff coming in the future. If you want to know what's coming for the week of July 2nd in the North American PlayStation Store, only subject to change without notice, we need to do the drop. Let's go. As Divine Dios comes to PS4 and PS Vita, digital and cross-buy. Among the many worlds the deities have created, there is one world that abounds with life known as Divine. But when a spate of disturbances erupts across the globe and an ever-spreading murk threatens to destroy it, Azaioi, the deity of Divine himself, takes up his cause to save the world he created with his own hands. Brain Breaker comes to PS4 Digital July 3rd. Are you ready to break your brain? While the kids are having fun with easy mode, master players can use different regions in your brain in insane mode. Choose from hundreds of backgrounds to create your own atmosphere. Playing 3 different games at the same time requires multitasking skills. Can you handle it? Final Fantasy XIV Shadowbringers comes to PS4 Digital and Retail. Take part in the next saga of the critically acclaimed Final Fantasy XIV Online with the next legendary expansion pack, Shadowbringers. Journey through expansive new areas such as Raktika Greatwood, Arang, Ilmeg, and Lakeland. Explore new jobs, new races, new cities, and more. Early access begins June 28th. O Vivo comes to PS4 Digital July 3rd. O Vivo is a mesmerizing platformer with unusual mechanics where everything is as simple as black and white. It is a metaphorical game filled with illusions and hidden messages in the world of O Vivo. Black and white exist in harmony. By constantly intertwining and replacing each other, they maintain balance. Paradox Soul comes to PS4 and PS Vita Digital Cross-Buy. Paradox Soul is an exploration-based survival Metroidvania that takes hand-holding and throws it out the window. Instead of spelling everything out for the player, the only way for Dr. Ali Rose to figure out what's going on in a peculiar test facility is to descend deeper down the rabbit hole and figure it all out by herself. You are her only hope. Scraper or Scrapper. Is it 1P? Scraper would be 1P. First Strike comes to PSVR Digital. Scraper First Strike is the first episode of a planned 5-part VR sci-tech shooter with RPG and exploration elements. It will take the player on a journey through a new IP with fully developed characters, story arcs, and a world filled with unique and exciting environments. 1 second. Sorry, y'all. Sea of Solitude comes to PS4 Digital July 5th. When humans get too lonely, they turn into monsters. Set sail across a beautiful and evolving world of darkness and light and discover what it means to be human. Embark on a nuanced and intimate action-adventure where players must guide Kay through her sea of solitude in this touching tale of darkness and light. Stranger Things 3 The Game comes to PS4 Digital July 4th. Stranger Things 3 The Game is the official companion game to Season 3 of the hit original series. This adventure game blends a distinctively retro art style with modern gameplay mechanics to deliver nostalgic fun with a fresh new twist. Explore, solve puzzles, and battle the emerging evils of the Upside Down. Tour de France Season 2019 comes to PS4 Digital and Retail. The yellow jersey is yours. The official route of the 21 stages of the 2019 Tour de France has been reproduced down to the last detail. It will take you from Belgium to the Champs-Élysées. You can also play online for the first time in the history of the series, challenging up to 3 other players in shorter, more intense races. Will, A Wonderful World comes to PS4 Digital and Retail. Become a god and help change the fate of people... Become a god and help change the fate of people, even the world. In Will, A Wonderful World, you will receive letters written by characters living in urban cities. By rearranging the order and combinations of sentences in these letters, you're going to alter the destiny of whomever that wrote them. That's it. Those are your new releases for this week. Now, if I had to do an Alex Derrickson-ass game, is 100% Sea of Solitude, followed by, I'd say, based on cover art alone, O Vivo. Now, on the topic of cover art, worst cover art of the week is probably Scraper First Strike or Brain Breaker. I might give it to Brain Breaker just for having a shit description, too. Like, help me sell your game, y'all. Come on. But that brings us to Trophy Talk. Remember, Trophy Talk is the part of the show where I try to take you from 0 to 100 as fast as possible in a game because, let's face it, we are impermanent beings on this planet. We will die. We will become ash or dirt or worm food, whatever, and I cannot be buried with my virtual trophies because I can't even get a goddamn trophy case in VR. Come on. How have you not done that yet? So let's take a look. We're going to scour some psnprofiles.com trying to find anything that may stick out. So we're going to go Paradox Soul. For sure. It has 2 bronze, 4 silver, 10 gold, and a fat plat. Currently, of the one owner on PSN Profiles, it does sit pretty at a 100% platinum achievement and 100% on the PSN as well. It's a lot of find stuff. Kill a mini robot, kill a bulldozer robot, defeat the first boss, second boss, destroy a lock terminal, reach room 33. That seems like that's actually going to be a really easy one. I'm interested to see if they stack on the PS4 and the PS Vita. They do appear to maybe be separate trophy lists, so that could be 2 easy platinums for you. Holy shit, is that it? Is that really it? Yeah, because I think we did, Kid Trip and stuff like that we did last week. So it looks like it's just Paradox Soul is your easy one for this week. Yeah, shit, that was an easy-ass trophy talk. That's a bummer. I usually like those to go longer because, that's like the end of the show and stuff. But, cool. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that was Trophy Talk, which means this brings us to the conclusion of episode 66 of the PlayStation Forecast. Remember, if you want to help keep this mics and lights working, you can go to patreon.com/pressxtoalex where you can support the show and the streams I do each week for $1 a month, which works out to $12 a year, which helps me do small upgrades here and there, and it's much appreciated. I've been able to do a lot more than I've anticipated using the Patreon and stuff like that as well. All the goals are broken down, and you'll see exactly where the money is going, where I intend to do it when we hit certain thresholds, things like that. I'm all about the transparency. I'm not trying to obfuscate you guys for your cash or anything like that. So check that out if you have not been to patreon.com/pressxtoalex. You can also follow me on Twitter at twitter.com/pressxtoalex, where, Jesus, if it comes through my head, it pretty much comes through my thumbs at this point. So check that out. Follow me there. You can help support the show as well from a non-monetary standpoint just by subscribing, by reviewing, following me on Twitch, checking out the streams every Wednesday and the 1 or 2 Saturdays a month I do. Remember, we are so close to becoming a Twitch affiliate, which is awesome, which is something I did not expect to happen at any point. I just do the streams for fun. So watching it grow has been a really good time as well. Thank you all for joining me. Remember, any links you want to use to contact me or follow, subscribe, anything like that will always be found in the episode description on the video and audio versions of this show. I'm going to get out of here, get this ready for Tuesday. Y'all have a great rest of your week. I love you. I'll see you next time. Do the thing. Oh, Robbie Bobby Miller thinks we should get a new Def Jam for Baltimore. That's something a lot of people have talked about. Wouldn't be surprised. I think the Def Jam series is probably dead. No offense. But be an alright thing to see, I think. But I'm going to get this ready. Y'all have a great night. I will talk to you next week. Let me make sure I didn't miss anything. I don't think I did. All right. You guys have a great week. Feel free to come back Wednesday. I will see you then.